The incident wherein Terrence had been stabbed on the set of a vampire movie had occurred on the night of October 19th, 2010. He was 44 years old. 20 years before that day, Terrence and his young wife Melanie were driving a crappy old car across the country. As he drove, sunglasses on, blonde hair blowing free in the wind, and a cigarette dangling from his lips, Terrence was feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty cocky, feeling pretty happy. He had no idea. Hi, I'm Neil A. Yeager, and today I'm reading from my novel, Non-Hollywood. If you're enjoying this audiobook so far, please subscribe to my YouTube channel for notifications of new chapters. This is Chapter 5, Going Hollywood. Terrence and Melanie's destination? L.A. L.A., that magical land where it was only a matter of time, and very little time at that, before Terrence would be crowned the next big thing. Before he would be a celebrated actor, before he would be rich and famous, before life would be damn near perfect. They figured that they had enough money to last them close to 2 years. Or rather, Melanie had enough money to last them close to 2 years, thanks to her late grandfather, who had named her as a beneficiary on a small insurance policy. But neither of them thought that they would need that much time. Terrence would be huge before then. Terrence pulled into the parking lot of a motel, and as he killed the engine, Melanie stirred awake. "Where are we?" she asked through a yawn. "Somewhere in Colorado," he said. Melanie rubbed her eyes, opened her door, and swung her feet out onto the pavement. "Pretty," she said. "Yeah, it is. Air smells good too." He walked over to Melanie, put his arm around her, and then lightly rubbed her stomach. Something that he couldn't seem to stop doing ever since she told him she was pregnant. Melanie brushed Terrence's bangs out and away from his eyes. He looked at her and smiled. "Maybe we'll get a home here, after the one in Malibu and the one in south of France." "Which," she said, "comes after your Academy Award and your star on the Hollywood Boulevard." "Maybe before the star thing," he said. Then he kissed her. Damn, he was happy. Melanie looked up at the motel and said, "Looks like a giant log cabin." "I hope that's intentional," Terrence replied, and they walked up and entered. At the front desk was a large middle-aged woman with a friendly face. The motel woman had watched them as they crossed the lot and entered her lobby, and what she saw, a tall young man, thin, with blonde, windswept hair, sunglasses, and exuding a casual confidence that movie people would label presence. And with him, a girl, thin and pretty, with jet black, obviously dyed jet black hair, and just the right amount of too much eye makeup. In short, two ridiculously attractive young people. The motel woman saw good-looking young people coming through her doors often enough to know what it meant. She said to Terrence as he walked toward the front desk, "Let me guess, you're on your way to California." Terrence laughed and removed his sunglasses. "Yep," he said, "going Hollywood." "From?" "From a small town just outside Indianapolis." "Minneapolis?" No, Indianapolis." Melanie chimed in. "He's in a movie." The motel woman asked, "Now he's in a movie or he's gonna be in a movie?" "Well, it's not out yet, but he's in one," Melanie replied. "It was being filmed in Indianapolis and they cast a few local actors. Terrence was one of the ones they cast." The motel woman nodded and said, "Really? That sounds like fun. Had you acted before?" Terrence responded, "Oh, yeah. Did a few local commercials. Did some modeling in Chicago for catalogs and stuff, but my part in this movie, it's only like 4 lines. But to start," Melanie added, "it's hard just to get started in that biz. We figured, might as well go for it now, what with a break like that and all." The motel woman asked, "So now you're going Hollywood?" Terrence nodded. Yep. Seemed like it was now or never. Being in movies is what I've always wanted to do, so I figured I should, do it. Well, good for you, said the motel woman. Terrence asked her, and how did you know that we were headed for California? Oh, you see something every day, you kind of get to recognize it. Every day? Terrence asked. As in, literally every day? Oh, yeah. But I tell you something else, though. I see people going Hollywood, but I see just as many folks coming the other direction. Lots of people out to make their dreams come true, and lots of people who've apparently figured out that theirs ain't gonna happen. Well, said Terrence, I guess that's good for your business then. It is, in fact. Now, if only I owned the place, she said with a laugh. Well, sir, if you could sign right here, and that'll be $37 for the night. Terrence took the hotel register and signed his name where the woman pointed, on the page for April 17th, 1990. Melanie stepped forward, pulling her wallet out of her purse. Yeah, she said, and I've got the other right here. The motel woman looked at Melanie, then at Terrence. A knowing smile crossed her face. As they unpacked their suitcase in the small room, Melanie laughed and said, Did you see her? Did I see who? The lady at the desk. Well, yeah, Mel, I saw her. I was talking to her. But did you see her when we were leaving the lobby? She was checking out your butt. She had to be like 40 years old and she's checking out your butt. Terrence was unfazed. Actually, women did that sort of thing to him all the time. Frankly, he thought it was odd that this was the first time that Melanie had noticed. Unless she had noticed before and this was just the first time she had said anything. He said, How do you know she was checking out my butt? I saw her in the mirror. Her eyes were glued. But how do you know it was my butt? You were walking right beside me. Maybe it was your butt she was glued to. Nuh-uh, it was definitely yours. Well, she can't have it, he said, and he walked over and hugged her. My butt already belongs to somebody else. Damn straight, said Melanie, and she kissed him. So, said Terrence, are we gonna do this straight through tomorrow? Hell yeah, Melanie replied. By this time tomorrow, I want to have my toes in the ocean. By that time the next day, Melanie's toes were not in the ocean, though they were a whole lot closer to it than Colorado. After looking through his mom's worn-out road atlas, Terrence had plotted a route which would take them right through Hollywood. It was dark as they drove along the 101 freeway. As soon as they had seen the round Capitol Records building with its pointy spire, Melanie had shrieked giddily, and Terrence had swerved across a couple of lanes to get off at the next exit. They had immediately gotten turned around, but after several guesses at turns, had somehow ended up on Hollywood Boulevard. But not the Hollywood Boulevard-looking part of Hollywood Boulevard. Melanie said in a quiet, worried voice, "This doesn't look like in the movies." Terrence looked around. He had to agree with both her statement and her tone. He responded, "No, it doesn't. You don't suppose there's another Hollywood Boulevard, do you?" "What, you mean like there's a bunch of Maple Lanes and 3rd Streets?" "Yeah. I kind of don't think so. I think there's only one Hollywood Boulevard." Terrence shrugged and said, "I'm gonna keep driving in this direction until we see something less sleazy looking," said Melanie. "More touristy is what I was gonna say." "Oh my God," Melanie gasped. Are those hookers?" I don't know," Terrence replied uneasily. "I think those were hookers." I don't know, Mel. Maybe they're just club girls. Let's face it, sometimes club girls dress like hookers." "Nuh-uh," said Melanie. "Those were hookers." "Maybe. I don't know." They drove along for several more blocks in silence. Melanie put her forehead against the window and sighed. She said, "It's not really what I was expecting. It's kind of depressing, actually. I guess I was thinking Hollywood, you know? I was thinking Hollywood would be something more like, oh my God! What? Look, look, look! She shouted as her pointing finger banged against the glass 3 times. Terence was puzzled. Where? He asked. Pull over, Terence, pull over! There's nowhere to pull over. Right there! Pull over right there! That's a red zone, Mel. I'll pay the ticket. Pull over, damn it! Terence swung the car into the red zone. Even before the car had come to a stop, Melanie was out the door and bounding toward the sidewalk. Terence, alarmed, quickly parked the car in the red, jumped out, and rushed toward her. Melanie was grinning madly and pointing at the sidewalk. Look, she said as she pointed downward. Terence looked down at her feet, and he saw it too. He smiled as Melanie shouted, Stars! Stars on the sidewalk! We're here, Terence, we're really here! Terence was standing on the star of Laurence Olivier on Hollywood Boulevard. There it was, that pinkish, marbly-looking star with gold trim. He looked back up at Melanie. She had an ecstatic look on her face, and she bounced up and down as she said to him, Can you believe this? We're here. We're actually here. Yes, they were. And at that moment, Terence felt something, a feeling that he couldn't really describe, would never be able to really describe. He just stood there on the sidewalk of stars, feeling this feeling that he couldn't describe. He was happy, but it was something more than happiness, much more. It was something that spread through his entire being, washed over him in the greatest of ways. When he thought about it later, the only comparison that came to mind was something spiritual. This, he thought later, must be the feeling of someone undergoing a religious conversion. It felt wonderful. And in the 20 years, 6 months, and 1 day that followed, he had never felt it again.